Good morning. So today is going to be lesson 13.6. We're going into the levels of organization in a multicellular organism. Previously, we learned about the cell organelles and how each different structure in the cell performs a different job. They are very important as they help one cell function. However, we are not just made of an individual cell. So what we're going to be looking at today are how cells build tissues, tissues build organs, organs build an organ system, and an organ system makes, or multiple organ systems make up a whole organism. I'll go over examples of that. As you can see, I have an agenda slide now that I'm putting up here, Bitmoji Classroom. Everything here is going to link to something else, including your classwork, which will still be posted individually on the assignment. This is just another way to access it. So just as an introduction, there are organisms that are made of one cell, such as bacteria, such as amoebas. They have to perform their own functions. So each cell structure or organelle in the cell is kind of like an organ for that individual cell, only they're tiny, so they're called organelles. However, a multicellular organism has to have multiple levels of organization because all of our individual trillions of cells have to find a way to work together and function so that the whole organism can function properly and maintain a sense of balance. Without that level of organization, the whole body would not function properly. So starting off at the simplest level, we've learned about atoms before. Atoms make up every matter on Earth, whether they're living or non-living. And we've studied that before. They were made of electrons, protons, and neutrons. But in the case of living organisms, those atoms then work together to make cells. And they're organelles. So in the case of an organism, the multicellular organism has larger parts that are made of more than one cell. However, in the unicellular organism, like amoebas and bacterias and euglenas, as another example, there's a single cell with multiple organelles. So, for example, the euglena here have a nucleus, and the nucleus functions as the control center that controls the rest of the organelles in the cell to perform a function. That's very similar to the fact that humans have a brain. Our brain is our control center, and our control center sends signals telling each individual cell and organ and tissue and organ system how to function properly to maintain balance. So there is a similarity in multicellular and single-celled organisms, but yet very, very vast differences. Let's see. I guess you can say in a sense that in the case of a multicellular organism, our order of organization from cells to tissues, tissues to organs, organs to organ systems, all the way up to organism is kind of like an assembly line. If you have a factory with an assembly line, each person in the assembly line has a job to do, and if somebody isn't doing their job, then the whole assembly line will fall apart. Same thing with cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, and organisms. If there is a malfunction at some point in that order of organization, the systems in the human body and any other multicellular organism would fall apart as well. So we have small little organelles to start with that do different jobs in our cells. One example would be a mitochondrion, or mitochondria for plural. Remember, they were the powerhouse of the cell, mighty mitochondria. They are the ones that perform the job of making food energy usable to the cells. Let's keep going. So, wait, one more thing. So cells are also connected to form larger structures. They might group together to form tissues of the stomach, and eventually the entire digestive system. So the cells in the stomach have to form the tissues of the stomach. The stomach then joins with organs such as the mouth, the esophagus, the small intestines, to form the digestive system. Now, the one thing I want to keep in mind is that the mitochondria are looked at as small molecules or micromolecules. There's micro means small. There are also macromolecules that make up most organisms, such as carbohydrates, proteins make us up, nucleic acids like DNA, the genetic material make us up, and lipids make us up. Purpose of the cell organization. So if we were only made of one cell, we would be made of one big cell. Or if an elephant was made of a cell, it would be a giant cell. Now, those giant cells would not be able to function because it requires way too much energy to help an organism of that size function as one cell. So we are made of many trillions of small cells. Now, so that the organism functions properly, all the cells in a certain organ have to function together to make up the tissues of that organ. And then all the tissues in that specific organ, so let's say we have the cells that make up the tissues of the brain. Then the tissues of the brain have to function together to form the full brain and have the functions of the brain sending signals to the rest of the body. Then you have to have the brain functioning with the other parts of the nervous system, such as the spinal cord, going down the vertebrae of the spine, and all the peripheral nerves that go to different parts of the body. And then that organ system has to function with other organ systems to make up the whole organism. So if your nervous system didn't connect to your muscle cells or your skeletal system or to your skin, you wouldn't be able to function properly because you wouldn't have sensation when you touch something hot to move your hand. Or if your nerves didn't connect to your muscles, if you needed to move suddenly due to some form of stimulus outside your body telling you have to get out of the way of something, then you wouldn't have a connection to your muscles to move you, or to your skeleton, or in the case of your skeleton, the same thing. It's very vital that these different sections work together. So the 5 levels that we're looking at are the cells, the tissues, the organs, the organ systems, and the organism. Again, they all have to work together. So here we have a good model of one cell. Here we have multiple cells making up a single tissue, and they are able to send messages and connect with each other and send materials back and forth. Then we have these tissues making up an organ such as the stomach, where we have food that begins its digestive processes or continues the digestion process, and then that stomach is part of the overall system of digestion, starting with the mouth into the esophagus, into the small intestine, to the large intestine, with other organs helping out, such as the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas, but they all function together to make sure big molecules of food are broken down into small molecules that we can take in, so that all the other organ systems stay nourished and have building blocks to help them develop vital molecules that help keep us functioning. What you're going to do is you're going to go into your Google Forms now, and you're just going to answer a few questions based on what I went over here. If you have any questions, Ms. Nikosian, I will be in office hours starting at 12 p.m. We can go over the Google Forms, we can go over this information, you can ask any questions on anything that you find confusing, and we will continue the levels of organization tomorrow with lesson 13.7. Have a great day.